Simple question. What's the most important issue in every election around the world?
It's the economy, stupid. Okay?
But what is economics? What is this mysterious force that surrounds us and drives so many people crazy? Is the economy some wrathful god that strikes down the poor and protects the rich? Is it a bunch of spreadsheets on Citibank's screen? Maybe it's just the amount of OnlyFans model subscriptions I can afford before my wife finally leaves me.
Please stop, please. No, please.
So it's just for me. I can't do it.
You can.
If you're a loser like me, maybe you've wondered about this stuff before. But don't worry, I'm going to explain the entire history of economics and teach you about this dismal science. Let's go back to the beginning, before Amazon made wage slaves of half your town and Ponzi schemes were openly endorsed by the government. Back before Adam Smith ruined your life with his economics, and before pornography looked like this. We need to take a trip back to the boy-loving sodomy days of ancient Greece. This is where we first get the word economics. It comes from the ancient Greek word oikonomia, which basically just means how you run a house. Today, economics is a full-blown social science for nerds. Our simple definition of economics is that it's the study of production, distribution, and consumption of goods and services. Our first economist is God. And don't worry, this isn't going to be some weird sermon like those ones in America. The man was pretty smart. He started his economy with two simple fundamental elements that underpin every economy: supply and demand. Being the clever guy he is, God created supply before demand in the first few days, you know? Making light, sea, fish, meat, like all that good shit. Unfortunately, without any demand or anyone to consume his products, God does not yet have a market. A market, in simple terms, is an exchange of goods or services. For example, me paying someone's mother for sex would be a market.
Thanks.
Anyway, this is where he makes Adam and Eve to create demand for a supply. A demand is simply a consumer, a customer, someone who's going to buy stuff from you in the market. They're going to take your supply and give you something in return, right? Now, God's a pretty good economist, but he's quite a bad businessman, so all he asks in return is slavish obedience.
Offer some words of appreciation for the United States of America and the president who's trying to save your country.
However, Adam and Eve now have a deal. The market is at an equilibrium. They're fairly balanced. God gets his slavish devotion. Adam and Eve get low prices on stuff because there's such a surplus. It's perfect. For you smooth brains out there, surplus is basically too much supply, too much production of whatever you're trying to sell. If you make too much of something, it loses its value. It's why I'd rather be with the girl on the left than the girl on the right.
Let me explain it to you. Men are monsters who crave young flesh. The end.
Being a woman, Eve had to ruin this pretty sweet deal by doing the one thing the market supplier, God, told her not to do by eating that fucking apple, resulting in her and Adam being cast out of Eden and the market as a whole.
I am never gonna financially recover from this.
Because of God's monopoly on supply, Adam and Eve now have to deal with something called scarcity, or lack of supply, which results in inflation, one of the scariest words in economics right next to the IRS and HMRC.
Where's all your money gone, Daddy?
Taxes.
It's okay. It's part of the game.
No, it's not.
It
It's not
is.
fun.
It's not fun to what?
It's the worst part of the game.
Oh, it's what?
Taxes.
You see, when demand outstrips supply, you get inflation. This is essentially where the price increases, usually represented by a percentage amount. If you're in Gen Z, this is why your white Monster Energy you bought for $2.50 will probably cost you about $3 in the next few years.
Because tariffs are going to make us rich as hell. It's going to bring our country's businesses back that left us.
Because they'll now die if they don't pay this inflated price for things, they now have what is called an economic incentive. An incentive is something that simply motivates you to actually go and buy something, right? Good example of this is how your gas company fucks you every winter because you've got an incentive to stay warm, so they can gouge you for whatever price that they're trying to get. The two of them now have to spend 100 times the amount of labour to find more food than they did before, as the supply has dried up and there's a scarcity. This whole fiasco is why me and you have to do shit like go to work, pay taxes, which is incidentally why me and most people in the ancient and medieval world became misogynists.
A witch!
Now we should have a good idea of what a market is and the fundamentals of how prices rise and fall. If there's low supply and there's high demand, we get higher prices. Simultaneously, if there is low demand but high supply, we get lower prices. Super simple. And with that, you can give yourself a great big pat on the back, because you now have more knowledge than the Chancellor of the Exchequer of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Now that we got these basics down, let's look at some actual history. Our true economic history of the world begins with the oldest profession. No, not that one. The other one, hunter-gatherer.
They stay within the same valleys all year long, weathering out the worst of the winter in shallow caves.
If we go back longer than 12,000 years ago, humans used to roam looking for meat, vegetables, nuts, and fermented fruit that they could make into alcohol. A lot like your uncle at the family dinner at Christmas. Because of that scarcity thing we looked at before, supply is low, so these guys just hunted and gathered what things that they could find. The economist Thomas Hobbes has this to say about the natural state of man, that life at this time was nasty, brutish, and short. This also describes how life is today in England.
Just woke up in a fucking steaming mood, yeah? Because I live in a shithole! Do you know what I mean? Birmingham is a fucking shithole!
And then something pretty magical happened. People realised about 12,000 years ago that if you left seeds in the ground and came back later, food would grow there. These days we call this the agricultural revolution. Now instead of constantly being starving and having to roam around to find food, we could grow it and make a surplus. Because now we don't need as many people finding food, people start to specialise in other things. Specialisation is where we focus labour on specific tasks in order to make more efficient production. That's because now if we've got someone that sits around and they're really good at making baskets, they can do that all day because the village will support them. They may as well make this one person who's efficient and specialised in this task to do it. It's a much more efficient use of labour. This principle is why I'm not going to ask my blackjack dealer about that raised mole on my back. I'm probably going to go to my fucking doctor.
Cool it with the anti-Semitic remarks.
It's at this point that food essentially becomes what economists call a commodity. In economics, a commodity is basically just a good or raw resource that we can assign some sort of value to. Not everyone has access to the same shit though. If I'm living in Ur, I'm probably going to have more food commodities available to me by the river. However, if I'm up in the mountains, I'm probably going to have some other shit that I can't get in Ur. The people living in the hills and mountains have a different commodity. They're going to trade in iron because they've got an abundance of that and they've specialised to produce it. They're going to trade it with those guys who have food. These places have what you would call a comparative advantage. Because they became so specialised in doing what they're best at, they may as well spend all of their labour doing that thing. This is why I don't go to my Chinese restaurant and ask them if they'll make me a pizza. It's a waste of their resources and of mine. I may as well go to the fucking pizza house across the street. This is because these guys have big brains and they've weighed up the cost and benefit of producing their specific commodities.
I mean, I was a businessman doing business.
The cost is just how much labour I've actually had to put into something, or resources that I've had to expend to create a particular thing that I'm producing or manufacturing. This is what it looks like when you've got too much cost and no benefit.
I've got nothing left. I've got nothing left.
The benefit is what advantage or how many shekels I can manage to get from the situation. For example, in the ancient Yellow River Valley, people used to be pretty good at making bronze. The cost of making the bronze was still high for the time, but the advantages, the benefits outweighed it. So in their cost-benefit analysis, it made sense to them to do this, and then just trade that for other things. Your girlfriend makes a cost and benefit analysis every day when she wakes up and decides that she enjoys being with you more than the cost of leaving you. I can only assume that this is what led to my second divorce.
Stop drinking beer for breakfast. I know what you're gonna do. You're gonna drink beer for breakfast. Stop!
Stir all these concepts together, and boom, just like that, we've now got something called an economy.
It's the economy, stupid. Okay?
At the beginning of this video I asked, what is an economy? Well, now we get to the actual answer. An economy, put simply, is the control or production of available resources. It's how a country, area or state manages what it has. In these ancient times, the state or government didn't really do that. It's more down to the individual. No one really cared about the economy, which is very similar to Venezuela today.
This woman told the president that everyone, not just his opponents, is going hungry.
People didn't use money for the most part. They traded items for other items instead. Like that autistic kid at school who used to trade Yu-Gi-Oh cards for stuff. This is called a barter, or simply an exchange.
I prefer extortion. The X makes it sound cool.
I've traded you an item for another item, something we've both agreed has a value, and we've settled on that. Though they didn't know it at the time, those unga bunga economics from the ancient era are essentially what our entire society is based on today. But that's enough for now. I've got a meeting with my divorce lawyer and I can't miss this one. Like and subscribe if you'd like to hear more in the future.